Hi there, and welcome to Healing at Last, the podcast. So, if I'm correct, I think this might be episode 5. Hopefully, I'm correct. I know that what I'm saying is episode 5 might say something different on this podcast, but anyway, welcome. You're very, very, very welcome to this podcast in our series of Healing at Last. Tonight and today we have Michael Mooney. Michael Mooney is an artist and a poet, even though you're not like me saying he's a poet. I have some of his poems and I know that he's a poet, but he is an artist by trade and a brilliant artist indeed. And Michael has been on a healing journey for a while now, but particularly with me. Michael's an ex-client, so what he's about to share with you is his entire journey through the clearing system and has journeyed with me. So I've journeyed with Michael for the last 2 years, I think. And what we're about to do is we're about to talk about that journey in a way that we hope, and Michael will speak to that in a minute, but in a way that we hope will really help people find hope. Hope through depression, hope through the pain of whatever is lying in the body that's causing depression. And that's where Michael's story begins. So our both intention, I think that's what we talked about, Michael, at the beginning of this, that our intention was hope. Anybody listening to this would be able to see themselves and know that there is an answer, there's a way out. And if we can leave anybody with that today, that is what we are hoping that we can do. So without further ado, Michael is going to start by, Michael, tell me a wee bit about the beginning of your journey. So when did you first realize that you were in difficulty, or how did that come about?
The first thing I noticed, would be going back to 2006.
Yeah.
I just realized that there's a problem. I started seeing things very negatively, just not being able to function or cope the way that I had before. And over a period of about 6 months of that, I realized that something needed looked at, something needed. So I went to the doctor and I was diagnosed with depression.
Okay.
And given antidepressants. And that then continued on. Then I was basically, that's all the help I got was antidepressants. I got no talking. There was nothing that I knew of at the time. It turned out later there was, but I wasn't signposted that way. So I continued on for a further 10 years to 2016. And then I had a sort of major breakdown as such.
Okay.
And I realized then that there was something. Well, I had gone actually before that. I had gone on 2011, 2012 to a different depression charity.
Okay.
And to a support group.
Right.
And I was with them for nearly 10 years.
Wow.
Taking part in the support group, and then I helped run the support group for a period of time. So I found that was helpful in a certain way, because you were meeting other people who were in the same situation. Yes. And there was empathy there because they understood what you were going through, what you were struggling with, because they were in the same situation. But I found that I didn't seem to be going anywhere with that. I did different courses. I done CBT and different other courses that they run. I at one point went and seen a psychologist, connected with them too. But I still found that it was helping. It was helping me to manage. Yeah. Because that's what the theme was. The theme was, this would help you manage your depression. But I was still struggling. I still wasn't recovering as such. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to recover. I didn't want to have to live with this. Yeah. So I always said throughout it that I would get on top of it. I would find a way out of it,
Wow. Well, that was very brave, given that you're in this kind of group. And it sounds like it's, for years there, just kind of learning to manage, finding, solace in the group,
Yeah.
finding connection in the group. It's helpful, but there was an innate thing in you that wanted to move beyond it.
Yeah. I always said to myself that I would beat this, that it wouldn't beat me.
Amazing.
That was what I said to myself,
Yeah.
And then this thing started happening, and I started to notice there was a pain in me. It was in my chest and my stomach. I started noticing when I was in a bad place, and I started feeling bad, that I had this feeling
Yeah.
which I couldn't explain. It was strange, just this, like a burning or a soreness in my chest.
Yeah.
And when I was struggling with things, that this became sorer.
Wow.
And over a period of time, I started to feel like there's something. I couldn't put it in words at the time. There's something here. I have to listen. There's something important here, or there's something happening here that I need to investigate. I couldn't put words to it, but over a period of time, that developed into, there's something here trying to tell me something.
So there was an instinct in you that knew, in this suffering, there's something inside me that's calling to me,
yeah,
asking something, and I don't know how to put words to it. I don't know what it is. I don't even know how to go to it, but there's something here.
yeah, and it seemed important, but I didn't know how to access it. I didn't know what I meant to do with it, and I spoke to other people in the support group that I was in, and asked them had I any experience of it, and no one else seemed to have had that experience.
Yeah.
So I was just on my own wondering what this is,
Yeah.
But
for everybody that's listening to this, what Michael's describing is brilliant, because he's describing the somatic sensation in his body, a burning in his chest, a heaviness, if I'm not mistaken. Michael,
yeah. It was when I started working with you. You got me to describe it,
yeah,
and I then was able. I focused on it, But as I said, it took a long time to get my head around what this was, and I sort of got to the point that this is something important. This is something I need to find out more about. And then a friend gave me your name and said that she'd been with you, and I hadn't spoke to her about this pain I had. I was just talking with her, and she said about that you'd helped her and maybe check you out. So she gave me your name and all the details, and I set it on the mantelpiece for about 2 weeks, because I'd been through everywhere and gone through everything up the
Why
hills
would
and
I
down
be
the
any
dales.
different?
Yeah. And my wife said to me, "Why don't you check that out?" And I said, "Sure, what's the point? It's just another dead end." But my wife kept on at me, and then it must have been, I don't know, could have been 3 or 4 weeks later. I was sitting there and I picked it up one day, and I Googled Shauna Quigley, and I found your TED talk on YouTube, and I put it on. You started talking, and I actually jumped up. My wife was watching with me. I jumped up and pointed at the TV, and I shouted, "That's it! That's it! That's this lady's talking about what's in here. This lady's talking about this. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And and my wife says, "Well, to get in touch with her," and I says, "Definitely." I said, "I've got to get in touch, because here's somebody understands what this thing what this inside me is,
And
So
the journey began.
yeah,
Once you'd recognized that I had understood that, because anybody knows the TED talk, I talk about the darkness that was in me. That was the only way I could describe it. It was a heavy darkness that would consume me. So you're seeing that, and then we began working together.
Yeah.
And at the
Yeah.
beginning, as we began working together, I don't think, and you can correct me, but I don't think we mentioned depression once.
No, no, because depression doesn't describe anything. You know, depression is just a term that
I love
that
that.
sort
But
of
let's stop there a wee second because that's beautiful. Depression doesn't describe anything.
no,
It
no,
describes, it's a term in which we understand a way of being, but
yeah,
what's really at the heart of it. And that's where we began to work, wasn't it? At the heart,
yeah, yeah,
literally.
yeah, yeah.
What's
So
that
not
journey like going in?
yeah, starting to look inside at what this pain that I had inside was, you know, and then we started working through the clearing method. We started, you know, and how it works is it's the investigation into what's this saying, because I knew this was talking to me. This was drawing my attention to something that I needed to look at, you
But isn't
know.
that amazing? Because most of us are blocked from our bodies. Most of us live in our heads. Most of us live in management. Most of us try to keep ourselves away from what is within. And here you are, Michael, being directly led to what is within and answering it, listening to it and answering it for the first time.
Yeah,
Incredible. But how innate that was to you, that felt really normal to you to do that.
yeah, yeah. I'm not sure. It could have been the 10 or 12 years before that,
Right.
where I was watching things. I mean, I never stopped looking for answers to what this was.
Right.
So maybe that over that time that somehow this was awakened in some shape or form. You probably know better than. Well, I suppose everyone's experience is personal and different. So I don't know where it came from, but it just developed over a period of time.
Yeah.
You know.
And it certainly got stronger and stronger because for a lot of people that come on especially this type of therapy, clearing therapy, they find it hard to get into their body. But I remember our work was right on there. You were right into this darkness. You were right into this chest feeling. You were right into that, listening to what that had to say to you.
Yeah, yeah.
What was that like to do that work?
I mean, it was at the start. It was strange because I sort of carried this around maybe for I don't know maybe a year, not knowing what it was, and then when we started working on it, it sort of because this has been probably screaming at me for a year, trying to get
Yes.
me attention. So when I turned my attention to it, it seemed to be ready to take me where I needed to go, you know.
How
And then
incredible.
yeah, and then we started, you know, then what it does then is it takes you back to the issues and the situations that that the problem started from, but which is how your method works. So I was able to go that guided me back, and the way you work it is it talking to you, what's the words, and that's what I was looking for. What's
Yeah.
this saying? What's this talking to me?
Because
So
that's a really important if we help everybody understand that. There is such wisdom in the body. The wisdom in the body speaks through the mind. And what normally happens is the body is alive with the emotions of the past. The body is alive with the energy of the past. And it has a particular language. And sometimes people talk about it as intrusive thoughts, or people talk about it as a negative self or a self-talk, but what we found and what I found in me and what I found in thousands of clinical Irish at this stage is that this wound is speaking and it's getting your attention. I mean, it's saying the most awful things, but it would
mm,
repeatedly say the same thing. When we would
yeah,
ask, what have you got? Not like you're asking something that's not part of you, tell me what's happening for you, tell me what's happening in your body, and tell me what's happening in your mind. We could hear this pattern coming good, and we could hear this language coming.
yeah, yeah. It was started. I mean, it started taking it. It was taking me back to situations in my childhood where there was emotions, very strong emotions, even trauma to put it
Absolutely.
it was trauma too that I didn't consciously understand, that I didn't realize was there, or I didn't fully understand, and then seeing the interpretations, the false interpretations that I took out of those situations back then as a child, and then basically
How that
that,
got vetted, how that got kind of rubber stamped.
yeah, and then I took that on that as a truth as to how that related to me, how I interpret my own self view through that false interpretation, or my worldview through that false interpretation.
Yes.
And then coming to understand that that's where the pain and the, you say depression, but that doesn't describe anything, but just the pain, the trauma that was manifesting itself now in the present.
Yeah.
And then the work is to go back and understand that those interpretations then made as a child weren't true.
So we'll stop
You
there
know?
for a second, because I think what's really important for anybody listening is that what we did is what you and I did together, more importantly, what you did. What you did was to go back to the times that this was when there was wounds and you weren't consciously aware of that. But to go beyond what happened to you. Because we could talk forever, couldn't we, about what happened to you. Now, you and I could talk, if we were to have a conversation about what happened to you, you and I'd be here for 20 years talking about all the incidents. I mean, because there was lots of stuff that happened to you.
Yeah.
But that's not where we were. We went in deeper than that. And that's what you're referring to when you say interpretations, when you say meaning, when you say woundedness, when you say emotions. You're not talking about what happened to you. You're talking about what happened within you as a result of what happened to you. Now that's a level deeper again. Does that feel right? Is that a good enough explanation of it, Michael?
Yeah, that's what I then, how those situations affected me on an emotional level, that I took interpretations out of those, that this situation means that I'm not important.
Yes.
This situation means that nobody cares.
Imagine, yes.
And then that interpretation was embedded in me. And I believed that for 50 years. And
Isn't
I carried that with me
incredible?
for
Because
50
that's where
years.
the depression comes from, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the belief and the identification with that you don't understand its source.
Yeah.
So this was embodied, embedded in you, speaking to you on a daily basis, and you were interacting and believing on it with it. And if you feel worthless and that nobody cares, well, the energy of that has to be depression. It can't be anything else.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I say. I mean, that's what I carried around, was that I wasn't important, that nobody cared, and that became my view of me and of the world. That's what the world was like. So once you go back, then the way this works is when you guided me through, was that once you go back and understand that interpretation wasn't true, because I mean, generally speaking, it was, but there's so much evidence there just to show that childish interpretation was driven by the emotion and the pain in certain situations. But there was lots of positive things going on back then as well, which I didn't see, because I couldn't interpret it properly as a child.
There's something about the process. If you follow what you're saying, there's something about the woundedness in you that lay in your body that led you right back to the places that were important, that created this wound. And then in the following of that and the going beyond the story of that. So if you think about it, depression was the first layer. Beyond depression, it's what's creating the depression. Once we get to the thematics, then we track that and the details, the language, the mind, the conversations, the things that happen. Then we go beyond what happens and go right into what happened to you. Then we have a roadmap out, because now you're talking about changing, reframing, forgiving, whatever the language is, because it's not the same for everybody. I mean, it's not just you know, it's not just a reframing for people, but for you it was seeing it differently, changing that emotional content. So when we started the changing process, what was that like?
Um, well, when you started to understand that those interpretations that you've carried aren't true, then it opens up another series of possibilities, you know, and you can then you start to challenge. I started to challenge those beliefs, and I started to understand that they weren't true, you know, and that I didn't have to live with those interpretations.
For the
And once,
first time.
yeah, that's where the freedom is. That's where you get break free, is that breaking those false interpretations and seeing that that's not who I am at all,
Imagine.
you know, and that more importantly, I don't have to live with this. I don't have to carry these interpretations. That I have the power to break that.
Yeah, and
You
I
know?
think for anybody listening, sometimes what happens is that whenever we're trying to break beliefs, if we haven't done the somatic work, then often you're trying to break beliefs that aren't the real root cause.
Yeah,
So
because you've managed to break those strong emotions, those false negative emotions, and that trauma. Once you've understood that that's not true, then with me, I wasn't being overpowered so easily,
so
because
that's really important, because somebody might have tried to change beliefs from things that happened. But what you're saying here is the key to it is getting to the root cause. And sometimes our minds play tricks and we think we've changed beliefs, but we haven't. But our work was not to only change the beliefs via the emotion first, to
yeah,
take away the emotional content, to take out the trauma, to take out the pain, to take away because only from that place can you change a belief. You can't change it any other way.
yeah,
There.
yeah. Because I noticed that the more I worked on it and started to understand that those interpretations weren't correct, that the strong emotions that came with them, those strong emotions started to wane, and the energy in those started to go down, you know. And then when you did challenge it, you were challenging it without that strong emotion being carried with it, which is what holds you back. It's once you started to free yourself from the emotions, that's where the power lies. The power lies there. That there's the energy and the power in those false interpretations that created the trauma and the emotions, no longer have the power to overpower you, that you start to take control. And when that starts happening, it's just amazing, because you suddenly realize this isn't controlling me anymore. I'm starting to get on top of this, and I'm starting to control this. I now control my emotions. I control my thoughts. And you get to the point where you start, when that feeling in your chest triggers, and rather than being overwhelmed by it, because you don't now you understand it, you've got all the information you need to go back and challenge it, and say that's not true. I now understand that's not true.
And
You
as
know,
that starts to dissipate, then you see that remove, and then you start to see the changes in your thought process remove
yeah,
itself.
you start to challenge things. Then you start to see things in a different way. You know, because that emotion isn't overwhelming you. Because at the start, you know where the work we did at the start was like, I would be trying to challenge this, but just overwhelmed time after time. And I mean, this process is not easy, you know, and you get overwhelmed, but every time that happens, you learn a wee bit from it, and then you work at it. And how it works is you gradually get stronger and stronger, you know, till the point where you step in and I mean, it's just it's unbelievable where this goes. And the mind, you know, I start challenging it. You start seeing everything in a different way, you know.
All of those false beliefs, all of that energy from those false beliefs start to fall away. And
Yeah,
then this new way of being starts to emerge.
yeah, yeah,
What's been happening to you over the last few months, this new way of being, this new way of reacting, this new way of
yeah,
conducting yourself.
yeah.
And where would you say the depression is now?
I really don't have depression anymore. As whatever depression is supposed to be,
Was?
but you know, and I understand what depression is,
Yeah.
and it's it's that false interpretations of situations. I mean, you're able to go in and and um basically tell the child back then that everything's okay, that what you believe is not true, and the
Some of that
pain.
beautiful inner child work for the
Yeah,
feeling like you weren't cared for the feeling like you weren't connected to, for all of
yeah.
that. Once that's removed, then there is no depression. Because
Yeah, because that's what I've been carrying. You carry those traumas and emotions, fearful emotions that the child had. But once I went back and I explained to myself back then, Michael, this isn't true. You know,
held
um,
yourself and gave yourself what you needed, because all
yeah,
of that's part of the
yeah,
process. It's not
yeah,
just screaming, but it's an entire process of, reparenting, being with the inner child. But what's really important here, I think, Michael, is that you were able to track what we call, track and
mm,
trace.
yeah,
You weren't running around your mind looking for random memories. The emotion
no,
in your body let you back to the track so that you could see this properly and be connected to it properly. That was the key to this, wasn't it? That was the key to this.
yeah,
This
yeah. I mean, as you progress through things, yeah, I started being able to recognize when the somatics came up in my chest, when I got the pains in my chest, I got to be able to trace that straight back. That's trauma. That's from such and such a time. That's anxiety. That's coming from back there. And then once I done that and traced it back, that anxiety's coming from that situation. And then I've already worked in that situation, and I know that my interpretation of that back then was wrong. That then immediately it takes you out of it.
Brilliant. So what you're talking about, so everybody else understands this, is the separation between the now and the then. That any
Mm,
emotion that come up through your body, you were able to what we call track and trace, and shut it off at source, so that it
yeah,
wasn't in this now permeating
yeah,
your mind, permeating your sight, permeating your relationships. You were able to just literally switch that off and be done.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
You could,
What a journey, Michael, eh?
yeah, yeah. It is just amazing that now I can, you know, all those false interpretations that I was applying now to every situation that was in. Um, no longer happen. As you go through this, you just become freer and freer, stronger and stronger, and you know, you just see things different. All that stuff that bothered you before has no power over you anymore.
Isn't that
You,
just incredible? All of that stuff that was permeating your existence has no power over you.
yeah,
And I love the way that you say it gently, and I love the reality that you place on it. You know, you get clearer and clearer, you get stronger and stronger, you,
mm,
you get unhooked and unhooked. It's a process,
yeah.
but at the end of it, you're free. And in all of that, it's hard bloody work.
Well, it's hard work. It is not easy work, you know, because you know you're going back and reliving trauma and pain that you've carried for, you know, God knows how many years. That's
And I
embedded
think
in
that's
you.
really important for anybody listening. You're going back and reliving. You're not going back and rewatching. You're going back
Mm,
and re-experiencing.
mm,
So when we use the body, we go back and re-experience what needs to be experienced so that we can
yeah.
be free. So this isn't a cognitive exercise where you're talking about what happened, or you're talking about what happened within you.
Oh,
You're actually re-experiencing, and that's what makes it difficult.
Yeah.
But would you say it was worth it, Michael?
Oh, definitely worth it. I mean, when we started this, I didn't realize how difficult this was going to be, and the process we'd go in stages, and there's a lot of forward movement, but there's some backward movement too.
Beautiful, but isn't that perfect?
Yeah,
These big leaps and you step back, and then these big leaps and then a step back. It's exactly
yeah.
right.
But you can see it. What kept me going through it was that I could see that there was improvement. Sometimes a good bit of improvement, sometimes a very small bit of improvement. But I knew this was working. I knew I was feeling better. I knew I was moving forward. I knew I was becoming free. And over time, as I say, I've got stronger and stronger as these emotions and feelings that have held me hostage for 50 years, they got weaker and weaker, and I could see that, and I knew that I knew I was going to get there in the end. I could see that.
Amazing. Amazing. It was a privilege to be part of the journey with you, and to be intricately so involved in your inner world. It was such a privilege, and to see you out of the other end free, as you say, not with depression, whatever that was, not even being able to have a frame or a frame of reference for that. It's incredible.
Well, that was just with your expert guidance.
Well, we get into this debate all the time, Michael.
Oh, I know.
We fight this bit out all the time. Michael tries to make me take the credit, and I won't take the credit, because at the end of the day, I didn't revisit, I didn't go back, I didn't face the trauma, I didn't use my body. All I did was help. All I did was facilitate. And the bravery that it takes to do that, you're dead right. For most of us, the therapeutic process is a cognitive exercise, looking back, but this is a full-bodied experience that is not for the faint-hearted, and you did that incredibly well.
Well,
Well
to say,
done.
I set out from the start determined this won't beat me, I'll beat it. And I
You
think
beat
that's what you need. I think everybody has that fight inside them,
Wow.
but you just have to find that. And I was determined that I was going to get on top of this, no matter what it took.
I think that's a lovely way to wrap up. The way to
Yeah.
wrap up is, there you were determined, and everybody has that fight inside them, the fight for something better. And if that's what we get at the end of this podcast, then hope that there is a way out that might encourage them to have that fight.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is that a nice way to
Yeah.
end?
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Michael. Thank you.
No problem, Shauna. Thank you.